podcast. I'm also on the board of directors of the Pixelpop Festival, which is going to be happening in August, and kind of relates to a lot of the stuff that we're going to be discussing today about making games in St. Louis. I have an awesome panel of local game devs here, and I'm going to ask them all to introduce themselves and tell you a little bit about what they do.
Hi everybody, I'm Carol Mertz. I'm an independent game designer. That means I make games by myself. I've worked with a couple of studios here in St. Louis, Happy Badger Studio and Butterscotch Shenanigans. I have ventured off on my own. I'm also a professor at Lindenwood University for design and game narrative, and I'm the executive director of aforementioned Pixelpop Festival, which is a 2-day festival that celebrates indie, unique games and the people who make them.
Hi, I'm Mary McKenzie. I run Volcano Bee, which is a small indie game studio based out of St. Louis. We have 2 free mobile games, Where's My Goblin and Sleepy Kraken, which are free downloads on iOS and Google Play. And we're also currently working on Battle Cakes, a snack-sized RPG, which will be out on console, PC, and mobile next year. And I'm also the Games and Game Developer Wrangler for Pixelpop Festival. We've already heard about it.
I'm Bott. I'm a visual artist at NVIDIA. I've done some game development here in St. Louis at a small studio. You may have heard of Semitronics. Currently, I'm working on virtual reality and things like that. So.
Am I correct in remembering that you also did game art for a card game company?
I did do that.
You did do that. Yeah.
Genius games.
Yeah.
Or game art.
Yeah.
I'm TJ Hughes. I run a company called Terrifying Jellyfish, and I'm part of Happy Badger Studios. So I'm an indie developer all around, but I specialize in technical art and particle effects and shiny things. I'm working on a game for Terrifying Jellyfish called Noor. It's a food art game. Recently got featured on Polygon, and I'm also doing the art for Smugglecraft, a game that's coming out really soon on PS4 and Steam.
Very cool. Well, throw everybody a softball question to start this off. Like, how did each of you decide to get into games? Let's just leave it right there.
Oh.
How did you decide to make games? How about that? Let's get a little more specific.
So, like, making games, it's really interesting. Like, my background is in primarily web design. I started studying web development when I was about 12 years old. That was, I'm not even going to say how many years ago that was. So I started studying web development back when GeoCities was a thing, and I was like picking apart people's code and all this stuff, and I was like, oh, I love interactivity. This is so cool. I love making things. I love like doing stuff on the computer and seeing stuff happen from that. But I never really, and even though I was a huge gamer, I loved playing games. I never really considered game development as a thing I could do until college. I joined a game development club with a friend of mine and started exploring games in college as just kind of a hobby. And then after that, that same friend of mine and I, along with his partner, started a web development studio. And then we were like, you know what? You know what we like? Games. You know what we should make? Games. And without that catalyst, without somebody encouraging me, I probably wouldn't be making games right now. But clearly it's a thing that I love enough to be doing it full-time, teaching it, and running a festival about it. So I'm really glad that I had that sense of encouragement, but I have to say, it was like through people saying, no, you can do this, that I found games.
Yeah, kind of similar. My background is actually in fine arts, where I kind of went the costume design and illustration route. And in the corporate world, I was in product development, and I realized I just really loved making things. And after I had children, and this was probably 3-4 years ago, I started watching them playing mobile games and like seeing the experiences they were having and realizing that all of the things that I loved about the fine art stuff that I was doing, like, were also in games, and I grew up playing games and loving games. And so myself, my husband, and our friend Matt, like, I was like, let's just try a project and see if we like it. Let's go from start to finish. Where's My Goblin was our test game that we completed in about 4 months, and really fell in love with the entire process because it incorporated literally everything that we love between art and programming and music and just the entire experience of making games. And we kind of grew from there. And then after we shipped that game, I found the St. Louis Game Development Co-op, and just through that community and the encouragement from that community is what's really helped us grow as a studio. So yeah, it was really just I want to see if I like this. And so I figured out how to do it because the internet is awesome. Yeah, it is.
Sometimes.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so I started out, I'd always drawn and I like doodling and this and that, and when I went to school, I picked animation sort of on a whim. I was like, well, I like art and art classes, and I like working on computers, so that seems like a happy marriage of those things. So I just jumped in. I was involved with a lot of our animation clubs, and because I was running one of the clubs, one of our professors was like, hey, you should run a game jam with this other guy. I'm like, I don't know what a game jam is, but fine. Like, it sounds applicable, because, you know, games need art too. So I helped organize a game jam, and from that moment on, I was kind of hooked. I loved the community, I loved the team coming together to build this great thing that people could interact with, and so I sort of, you know, took my art direction and jumped into gaming and stayed there since.
Does anybody not know what a game jam is?
Yeah, just thinking that.
Maybe can you explain that? Yeah.
So in a game jam, basically you're given a theme. I guess you don't have to be, but you're gonna make a game in 48 hours. So people come together. You can have pre-formed teams, or it can be individuals, and you make a team on the spot. You grab some folks and hash out an idea real quick, and try to make something magical by the end of 48 hours, or whatever the length of the jam you're doing is, I guess. But,
Okay. And since we're talking about game jams, I'm just going to insert that there are quite a few of them that happen in St. Louis, and also one of the biggest global game jams that happens
yeah, I think we
here.
were the second largest site in the United States this last year. We had upwards of 300 game developers, and that includes artists, voice programmers, anything in between.
We were second largest in the United States and 14th largest in the world out of over 700 sites globally. So, I mean, think about how great that makes St. Louis as a place for development.
Yeah, for me, I got started in game development when I was 13, so a little over 7 years ago. I just discovered Unity one day, just like at school. Like everyone was procrastinating, playing like Paradise Paintball or something on the Macs in the Mac lab, and I saw that it was made in Unity, so I was just like, what is this? So I started just learning it from YouTube tutorials and like online PDFs and stuff, and I just like posted my work online and just like, hey, I'm learning how to do this, and I really didn't think much of it. Like I just did it because I thought it was cool and it was fun. Like I never thought I would make a career out of it. Like I thought it would be pretty cool, but didn't think it would actually happen. And so yeah, I'm just completely self-taught from the internet. Like before I got into game development, I would just like mess around in things like MS Paint and Windows Movie Maker, just like any program I could get my hands on, like pirated versions of Flash.
No one's recording this.
No one's working. Anyway, that's
Pirate
just,
it as a euphemism for something totally legal.
Yeah. But we all have our origin stories.
Great segue, TJ. I actually wanted to segue into like how, like, Amanda, you talked about going to school for animation, and both TJ and Mary talked about like getting their starts on the internet. How did you guys kind of, since once you had learned about, okay, I know I want to make these, you're interested in Unity, I don't know that everybody in here knows what Unity is either. Like, there's so many opportunities online where you can teach yourself how to make games. Can you guys talk a little bit about those and kind of the growth of the education you did for yourself, whether it's formal or online?
Yeah, so you'll be really surprised at like how much you can find through Google. Like everything I know about game development, Google has been somewhere along the process of me learning it. And like what I do is anything specific that I want to learn, I just Google like how to do this really specific thing. And you also have to learn how to use Google to like really get you the results you want. So like there's a definite like kind of like pseudo skill involved in it, like knowing how to word things to where Google will get you the results you want. But yeah, I can't advocate for Google enough. Like seriously, just everything you want to know is just on the internet somewhere. Not everything, most things. If you're trying to be a doctor,
Also, if you pick an engine that you really love, most of those websites, like unity3d.com, has a ton of tutorials from incredibly basic, like you've never touched programming, you've never touched Unity before, all the way up to really advanced tutorials. So, and I'm sure GameMaker does, and there's also really great stuff like Twine and Scratch that are browser-based that actually really lead you through it and get you used to the logic of programming. But yeah, really pick any game engine that you're interested in and just start on their website, because almost all of them have learning documentation, and then Google. And like TJ said, like learning how to ask the right questions is really the trick. Other than that, it's just reading and listening as much to as many like YouTube videos and podcasts and just any information you can get your hands on.
Yeah, forums really, really help. Like, definitely ask questions, but like research before you ask questions, because a lot of people will get annoyed when they're just like, oh, this question's been asked like a million times. But no, yeah, definitely like join forums, ask people questions. See it, like you'll be surprised at how many people are out there to just like help you figure stuff out.
Yeah, unsurprisingly, I'm going to echo that. As every time I start a new class or I start talking to a new group of students, I say, everything I'm about to tell you, you could just Google. Like everything that I can teach you in any class, you can learn on Google. The value of having a teacher, the value of having a community of fellow students, or joining the St. Louis Dev Co-op, or of going to an event like this, or going to Pixelpop Festival, is having feedback, is having direction, is having mentorship. And that has been really valuable for my growth in game development, is finding mentors who can help guide me, having peers who can help, me discuss and provide feedback on the games that I'm working on. The other thing I will mention is the St. Louis Public Library. If you are a card-carrying member at the library, you get a free subscription to lynda.com. And there are really great web tutorials on Lynda for Unity and Unreal and all kinds of really great game engines. And it's just like free, like 8-hour courses on how to use these tools. Udemy is also a really good resource for really, really high-end tutorials.
And I'd say most libraries have the Lynda subscription. Not every library, but like we're in Edwardsville, Illinois. They also have the Lynda subscription, and I bet most do.
Yeah.
Wasn't sure if you were leaning in.
I mean, it's a lot of echoing what they are. I was going to say check out the libraries. There's also a Plural site. If you're an artist, you can always get feedback on your artwork. My art station, DeviantArt, there's CG societies. It just depends on your focus.
I know ArtStation is huge in the game industry. It's really, really commonly used, especially for 3D artists.
Like portfolio, and just the communities are always really generous and always want to help other people succeed and get feedback. I was just gonna echo what Dick talked about Googling everything. Every day I literally live on the Unreal Engine, documentation pages, just how do I do these things, forums, people concerned. I know we've said it before, but even if you're a professional, you're just like, how do I do this thing, like constantly.
So since we're here in St. Louis and we're talking about St. Louis, and I think Carol, you've already mentioned it, how many people in the room are familiar with the Game Developers Co-op locally? Anyone? Few? Okay, let's talk about that type of thing right now. I want to talk about communities that are local in real life, not online. Where can people find in St. Louis other peers? Because there's a lot more of them here than you think.
Yeah, St. Louis actually has a community of well over a couple hundred developers, from anywhere from hobbyist and student to professional studios that are indie full-time, and NVIDIA, which is surprise. Did you know that there is a studio in St. Louis for NVIDIA and Riot Games, creators of League of Legends, the most played video game on the planet? Like, yeah, so there's a huge community of developers and people who are excited about making games, and we all, a handful of us got together 4 or 5 years ago to form, well, the meetup formed pretty much when you started working on the game jam, or just before that.
The group was right around 2011.
Yeah, so back since 5-6 years ago, there's a meetup group on meetup.com of just like events that happen monthly or bi-monthly. And since then, it has evolved. We've gone through different iterations of, structure of the community, but really what it boils down to is if you go to stlgamedev.com, you get a list of all the upcoming events, you get a list of all of the local published studios, and you get like all kinds of resources that are created for people working out of St. Louis.
What's the name of that again?
St. Louis Game Developers Co-op.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm glad we get to talk about that on this panel, because I didn't find the St. Louis Game Developer Co-op until, once again, I Googled it. Like, I was just like, are there any game developers in St. Louis? I just had no idea, because every game developer I knew was just like, like on Twitter or something, or just like on the internet somewhere, like across seas or just like somewhere else in the country. But it was awesome to find a community of people who are doing the same thing like here, and it was the best. And it was how I found Happy Badgers and how they hired me. So yeah, it was awesome. It was the best decision.
that guy.
Used to be my boss.
I used to be your boss.
We kind of the same, like my studio actually, we made a game, like, and we kind of thought we would be on an island, because I came, after college, I was in Chicago and then New York City, and we came back to St. Louis after we had a family, and I just kind of assumed that there wasn't going to be that community, and we created our first game, and then I started Googling and found, like, just this amazing, huge local indie dev community that was insanely helpful about helping us push toward our next game. At the, I guess, second Pixelpop Festival, we displayed our next game, Sleepy Krakenat, and that was huge in getting play testing and feedback and like pushing us forward. Otherwise, we probably would have stalled out and only made our first game, and then just kind of called it quits. So, but yeah, it's pretty.
And can you speak at from how the video got here? Do you have like kind of a perspective on that?
Why they're here?
Yeah.
It's not a very glamorous story, but like NVIDIA is based in Santa Clara, California, and 8-ish years ago, there was a company here called Aegea, and they were working on the physics engine for GPUs at the time. And NVIDIA was like, hey, we do physics, and we want to build PhysX and that jazz. So they bought Aegea, and a lot of the people that had worked at Aegea stayed and they remained, and they just left the office here. And so their office is all over the world. There's about 10,000 people at NVIDIA. We have offices in Moscow and North Carolina. And don't worry about it.
Moscow and North Carolina.
You know, those are the key words.
But the thing that I love about that is that you have something that is a global brand, and then all varying levels, all in the same city, that doesn't really have, honestly, a lot of people I talk to on a regular basis don't have awareness that the gaming scene is as big here. And we're talking primarily about video games, but the board gaming community here is huge. Carol, can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, with pleasure. So we have an amazing board game scene in St. Louis. We have Greater Than Games, the publishers of Sentinels of the Multiverse. We have Jamie Stegmeyer, who has not only published a literal book on crowdfunding through Kickstarter, but has published amazing games from Viticulture to Euphoria to Between Two Cities to his most recent Side. And we also have Genius Games, which Amanda used to do art for, which is science games for science education. We have Studio 202, which published an amazing game called FlipU. We just have this vibrant board game community. We also have Geekway to the West, which is one of the biggest Midwestern game convention or board game conventions. And it's just there's so many great opportunities for board game developers. I published my card game completely by myself, but it was because I had all of these amazing resources in St. Louis, these amazing mentors that I could go to for experience and for research, and it's amazing to know that these people are all here with us, and that we can just like go to a place like Geekway or Pixelpop and just meet these people who are making the games that we really admire and look up to.
Absolutely, and sure.
I'm sorry, I just have questions.
We're definitely leaving time for questions, because I'm hoping you guys have a lot of them. Another thing I kind of want to talk through before we get to questions is Pixelpop, since three of us are part of the Pixelpop team. I'd love to talk to you guys about it and let you know that it's coming up soon. Carol's the executive director, so I might defer to you for a moment if you want to talk about
I've been talking so much.
All right, Pixelpop, the whole idea behind it is that there's 2 days that are going to happen at SLU in August that are all about the art of making games, making unique games, making interesting games, and ideally we're going to have as many of you there to kind of talk through with professionals from here and from around the country about what goes into that. So do you want to talk a little bit about the history of it?
Yeah, so we started Pixelpop as just an opportunity. Like I said, the St. Louis games community has only been really formed for about 5-6 years. And we started Pixelpop in 2014 as an opportunity to bring players and creators together and introduce people who aren't necessarily interested in making games, but are really into the art and the craft of making games and are into the idea of unique, independently produced projects and introducing those to the people in St. Louis who are doing that stuff. And providing an opportunity for them to meet and ask questions and play these new and like strange and fun and small games that they might not otherwise ever hear about or ever get the chance to play. And that, I mean, we've been doing this since 2014. We've been having speaker sessions from both local and national developers and artists and content creators talking about what they do in games and talking about the process. And then having games like, even like newer, like TJ showed last year, where it's a game that you can only play if you have his MIDI fighter.
It's not very experimental.
Yeah, it's these really unique experimental things that, like, there was one that was a DJ simulator where he actually brought in this giant DJ table, and you were essentially like a radio jockey. It was called Disc Jockey, and you were a radio jockey, and you had to, like, you know, play with all the trim pots and like hit all the buttons and like, you mess with all the dials, and these are the kinds of experiences you can only get at an event like Pixelpop.
Right, and there are tons of events all around the country. This is just one of them, but it's growing. And I know, like, you just talked about more. It's like you were at GDC, what, a month or two ago?
Yeah.
And you demoed there, and can you talk a little bit about how that all went down? Because it kind of blew you up a little bit.
So before going to GDC, the Game Developers Conference in San Francisco, just on a complete whim, I just tweeted out, hey, I'm bringing my game Newer to GDC, and I uploaded a little like video with it. It was just like a bowl of ramen and like just a bunch of noodles falling into it, and like a bunch of meat falls into it, and like people just really liked it. And so the tweet just blew up. It got like what 500 retweets and like almost 1,000 likes, and just like a lot of people in the game scene that I look up to like saw the tweet, so yeah. Anytime someone would like recognize me, they'd be like, "Hey, can I demo the game?" So like in random hallways, I would just set up the game and just like on the floor and just have a little like chill out corner. And at one point, actually, someone who was legitimately demoing at GDC, like they had a booth and everything, they let me take it over. Shout out to Diaries of a Spaceport Janitor. You guys are awesome. Love you guys. They let me have their booth for a little bit, so I just set up my computer, set up my MIDI fighter, and people would just come by, and at some point we found like a piece of paper where I just wrote Newer on it and put it over the like, banner, so people would know that it's not Diaries of a Spaceport Janitor. And so yeah, people that just came by and played it, and it was an awesome time, and it really like showed me that just the humbleness of like indie developers and like the hospitality of indie developers. Like you'll find that it's a really like friendly community, and it's not like really competitive. Like we all try to like boost each other up and like promote each other's stuff. And so that was just like a really great example of that. Yeah, it was just great.
No, that's an extremely good point. It's like I am not actually a game developer. I just hang out with a lot of and help support community as much as I can. And that's what I love about this community is that the people making the games that you love and hopefully that you want to make understand like they are warm, awesome people that want to help you. So going to events like a Game Developers, GDC, or coming to Pixelpop, these are places where you can connect with a lot of people that can help you grow, and that shows so much in what you were talking about, and I hope that's what we're going to bring out of Pixelpop, and it's already what I've seen come out of it, so that's really
I was saying, it's really hard to grow without a
Yes.
Like, I would not be sitting here today if it weren't for support from people either, you know, they had access to resources, or because I worked with them, they're like, hey, there's an opening here, I wouldn't have heard about that without them, or, you know, whether it's looking at my art and giving me feedback, or, you know, playing that game and being like, hey, you know, it's all right, but this is what would make it more exciting. You know, maybe there's a few people here and there that can make it on their own, but really, the support of the community and people around you is really how you're going to soar if you want to go places.
Exactly, like the rising tide is much more the way you want to go. Like remember, like you have friends, like enjoy the time with them and they will help you grow.
Yeah.
Oh,
Sorry. Oh no, I was just gonna say, like with our game, we released a mobile game, which is incredibly accessible to release a mobile game. And honestly, we kind of thought we were just going to stay in the mobile games realm until we met this community and started talking to people, and they were like, "Hey, maybe you should reach out to consoles." And that had never crossed my mind to go from like, "Hey, let's make a game," to like with within a few years, actually having a console rep, like, kind of amazing, and that wouldn't have happened without speaking. This lady actually is one who told us, but, like, that wouldn't have happened without the in-person connection.
Right. Actually, Mary, can you talk a little bit about like the events that aren't the conferences, the larger scale ones, the ones that have helped you that are more micro that you can go to like every other week at this point?
Yeah, like the co-op actually hosts a lot of events, but the one that my company, Volcano Beam, particularly loves is First Fridays at the Science Center. The Science Center is so incredibly helpful, and they're so passionate and want to help the local like tech and art scene that they provide space. If you contact them, and through the co-op, we've actually set up a program where you can get free demo space every single month at their First Friday event to play test to the public, to everyone who comes to their events, because it's invaluable to watch someone else who is not you or not your friend play your game and see how they react, see if they get confused, see if they get it. I can't speak enough about publicly testing. So there's that. Yeah. And we obviously do it on a much smaller scale than NVIDIA, but like it's great. And so yeah, but also co-op has events. I'm forgetting stuff.
They do stuff like panels, roundtables, speakers, networking events. They do.
The drink ups are nice if you have a little bit, like you need a little bit of social lubrication. Take a few drinks to kind of help you communicate a little easier. Because that's helps some people. Yeah.
And they do, they'll do playtesting events too. They do a lot of the game jams, so there's at least generally 2 or 3 game jams a year.
Tutorials sometime.
Yeah.
I gave a Blender tutorial a few months ago.
Yeah.
There's just basically, a huge variety of types of events that you could be going to pretty much any time that it crosses your mind that you want to and meet people in the community and start growing.
Yeah.
Since we've already had like the interesting questions, I'm gonna open it up right now and then we can go from there. Like you right here.
I'm not trying to learn this all over. I'm a writer. I am creating an animated series. I already have one piece of merchandise. I have a doll for the character. I want to make a game. I don't want to make the game. I want somebody, I can tell them this is what I want. So, co-op, would that help me find somebody who could actually do the nuts and bolts of this? And I can say, okay, this is what I want to have happen. This is the way I want it to look. And I want it to be across all platforms. I was just thinking about mobile right now, but if we can go to council, I'm good. Let's do that.
Generally, especially if you have a budget, if you have funding for the project, then you're gonna have a lot easier time finding people. It's really, it's hard to find people who buy into your idea who aren't part of the original idea. And asking people to work for free is a really tough sell, right? So if you have budget and you have funding, then yes, absolutely. The co-op is a great place to go saying, I have an opening, I'm looking for a game developer, I want somebody to help me make this really amazing project that I'm super passionate about. Please do that.
What are the rates hourly on something like that? Because I'm talking to a company that's in California right now, and the budget they gave me was a little steep, although they said, well, maybe we could charge you monthly, which wouldn't be a bad thing, but it was high for what I expected.
I think also if you approach it and say like, when you start having this, say you do have a budget, and then start those conversations privately, not in the public forum, with what your budget is, and they can let you know if that's something they can work with or not, and whether or not that's going to be worth your time. It's usually a really great place to start with, because obviously it sounds like you do have some funding, or you could also like, you could do, if you want more funding, you could always look into Kickstarter since you already have kind of a property that you have an identity for. But also it also sounds like you do have something, which is the other thing is like, being like, I have this super vague idea and I need someone to make it for me is never a great idea. So yeah, having a very specific thing like it sounds like you do is fantastic. So maybe put out the call that you were seeking out developers and then start those one-on-one conversations with what your budget constraints are.
Okay. But I can go to the co-op and find these people?
Is there?
Or do I have to join? What do I have to do?
Yeah, there's, on the co-op, there's a list of local developers, and then there's also a Facebook group where you can join the Facebook group and then reach out to everybody.
Okay.
And everybody's gonna have different rates because everybody has different experience levels and things like that. So yeah, it's just a matter of having conversations and finding a developer who shares your vision and who also can fit within your budget constraints.
And if you go to the co-op page, like there is a list of local studios. You can kind of go to their website and see the games that they've made.
Right.
So you can try to start having those conversations with people who have an artwork that you are already, because I'm sure as a creator, like you have a vision in your head.
Right.
And that's always the hard thing, is like you need to find someone who can either make that vision or already has kind of a similar art style.
Okay.
That will cut out a huge amount of heartache for you.
Yeah, and
You guys
if
got
you,
business cards?
yeah, if you have more questions, the cards are up here at the end of the panel, so, right back here.
Yeah, so, I'm curious, I'm more of like a classical artist, I do like painting, build, that sort of stuff. I do some writing, and I've had a little bit of experience with actually doing some like dialogue code, just various things that I did with like and stuff, with like the temple and lines. But I was curious, how does like, you know, as a classical artist that deals more with like, like animating, charcoal, acrylics, that sort of stuff, break into more like that like graphic digital sort of medium? Or if there are cards, portraits, and things like that, how would one go about doing that?
Well, I think it's pretty easy to translate to like board games and things like that. It's gonna take, you're still gonna have to have like graphic design knowledge because it's not, I mean, some people do box art, I guess, that is strictly like artistic, and then they have someone else do title work and things like that. So you just need to, it's visiting, there are board game groups on Facebook, and I think do you have a meetup?
Yeah.
Well, there's a number of meetups.
Yeah.
So searching for those communities, there are people looking for box art and card design and all that all the time. So you can certainly look for those studios. And then as far as transitioning to games, like those skills are 100% applicable. It's just either you have to find something where you're scanning those images in, because you can do a stylized game where you can scan your art in if you want to work traditionally, or if you're also like a digital artist, you can work in Photoshop or an Illustrator or any number of other programs. And those are the assets that go right into the game. So, and it depends on 2D, 3D.
Yeah, and there's a ton of like hardware that can also help you with that transition, like Wacom tablets, where you can just like draw directly on the computer, and ones where you can draw directly on the screen, like the Microsoft Surface computer. Things like that really help, and along with like a good program like Photoshop or like Autodesk Sketch or something.
Yeah, since personally, not my company, but I do a lot of hand-drawn stuff, and then I scan it into the computer, and then through Adobe products, I color it and then animate it. But I also do a lot of editing and tweaking, like maybe my line wasn't quite right on that particular sprite. So yeah, it's definitely, you can either draw directly via like a Wacom tablet, or you can do physical art that you scan, or however you get it into, like digitize it, and then you can go through the animation process. But it's just a lot of practice and experimentation, especially coming from the fine arts world. You really have to figure out how you want to mesh those styles, and really there's nothing, you're never going to be able to plan that out. Like it's just like keep iterating, keep doing it, and seeing what feels really good to you, and then you'll kind of find your way.
I'll throw out also a lot of large studios look for really great concept artists who can help them really fully form their ideas. If you, there's a really amazing documentary about the studio Double Fine, where they touch on like a couple of episodes about the creation of the game Broken Age, about like the entire process of concept art and everything. I can't recommend that documentary enough. By the way, if you're curious about the art of making a game, the Double Fine adventure game documentary about making Broken Age,
Which I think is free on YouTube now.
is it?
Yeah.
It's so useful to learn like the process of a larger studio making games. And you can kind of get an idea of what goes into that concept art phase. And I will also say, a lot of games are trying to get seen a lot more easily, and like unique art is what draws a lot of people to games. And so we're seeing a lot more games that pull from traditional art. There's a free game that just recently came out called Sacramento, where literally all of the art assets are hand-drawn art on 3D planes. And it's like this beautifully animated, hand-drawn like world that's in this 3D space. And it's a really beautiful, remarkable piece. And I think we're gonna start seeing more and more of that as people try to really create something that's new and different. They're gonna be going back to that more traditional art style.
Is there like a social media sort of like group or like, or like place that like it's like not?
Specifically for artists?
I don't know. DeviantArt is always a good one for art specifically. I'm not sure if you're on it already.
And ArtStation, like we mentioned before, ArtStation is a really great resource.
And also just Twitter, like all of these like kind of sub categories of like different skill sets and specializations. Like everyone kind of flocks to Twitter. It's really interesting actually. Like just Twitter's where indie developers just go for some reason. So like definitely get a Twitter account. Like follow some people in the field that you really admire, and like people are definitely bound to like give feedback, and like it's like LinkedIn almost, except for like a bit more social.
And also for art, Instagram, I found, because it's such a visual platform, has been really great for me personally, like just as far as having feedback and people seeing my personal work, it's been really great. So again, differences in platforms.
And if you want local feedback, if you join the St. Louis Game Dev Co-op, we actually have a Slack channel. It's like $20 for a year. You get access to a Slack channel, and a lot of developers are on there constantly. And we even have like a sketch daily, and folks will throw up things they're working on currently, and there's always a lot of great feedback, and people, like we said before about the community, we're always willing to jump in and help. So if you're a part of that active, you're gonna get a lot of people to support you and help you get to where you wanna go.
Right here.
First off, I guess I'm not doing Google searches well enough. So I'm primarily board game developing. I've got a full working prototype, but I'm kind of stuck at that next step of going to finding an independent group to actually play it without me present, to give me a kind of a unbiased sort of opinion of how it goes. So this co-op, the Pixelpop, I mean, is the Pixelpop primarily video game related, or is there a portion of board? Okay.
Yeah, Pixelpop is for both. So, yeah, but in terms of what you're talking about, like kind of being stuck and like getting the play testing, like if you wanted to start doing that sooner, you could even be looking at things like
The first
Fridays. And the Science Center.
Yeah.
There's a board game group though that gets together and they have play tests. I don't remember exactly where it's at, but
There's definitely a Facebook, a board game, St. Louis Board Games Facebook group.
Well, I'm in Collinsville, so I'm not too far from.
Oh, yeah, no,
where you're at.
absolutely, but I know, like, 'cause they do tend to segregate a little bit, but it all is still the same community, but there is specifically a board game centric
and like they
Facebook
get
group.
together at like a Schnucks or something.
Yeah, there's a meetup.com. It's a private group, so you have to be actually working on games to join the group. But you request to join, and you'll get all the details about when and where these. It's game designers play testing each other's games, which is one of the most valuable things that you can have.
Yeah, and that's what I'm really looking for.
Yeah, and so check out meetup.com. I think it's just called the Board Game Designers Playtest Group. And then, honestly, any opportunity that you can get, go to even just board game player nights. Like, so I know that there's a lot of cafes around St. Louis.
Well, what's a specific Google search to find that?
Check out Meetup, honestly, meetup.com is gonna have your regular board game meetups.
Okay.
And also check out, like local board game shops. A lot of times you can host playtest nights partner with them for playtesting nights and just say, hey, I'm gonna take over your shop for this evening or whatever.
Right, and even if they're not hosting one, they can definitely tell you where to find them because other people will have asked a lot.
Yeah.
So you'll-
Well, I've asked it like Fantasy Shop, and they were like,
Yeah, Meetup I think really will be your best
Okay.
for specifically what you're looking for. And if you have a little more finished prototype, like joining the co-op, being part of the first Fridays, but then that's having the general public play test it. So sounds like you want a little more focused feedback, correct?
Yeah, I want to make sure the rules
Yeah.
Yeah.
play out.
Yeah.
Got us another hand go up towards the back. Over here.
So I met a couple of you guys last year. I run a YouTube gaming channel in this area here, and one of the things is I've been a lurker in the Facebook group for a while because I don't feel like I'm not a game developer, so it feels kind of a bit weird, like seeing everything that goes on. What is the feeling of quote unquote press being in there or going to these meetups and kind of networking? Is it a frowned upon thing?
Yeah, it's
That's how I met him.
That's one of the things I've always been a little leery of is you always get this, I don't want to push my channel onto them, but it's like, this is what I'm doing in the community. We want to get together. We changed our name to STL at the end of it for that reason. We want to support St. Louis.
Well, I think too, like you're obviously passionate about games, and that's really the community. Is people they're passionate about making games, but also just passionate about games in general. And so absolutely, you would fit like that. It's all in the same world. So yeah.
And from the perspective of someone that has done that, it's anything you can do to help amplify people that are making games locally, that's a great thing. So they're going to want to talk to you for sure.
Yeah, STL game developers are usually like super great about like we'll even sometimes just like give you keys to like player games before it comes out. Like I would do that. Like want to play more before it comes out. Like yeah, totally.
It's a matter of like being able to like give and take, right? Like so, I mean, we're helping you, provide content for your channel. You're helping us provide visibility for our projects, and that's really an awesome relationship to have. So yeah, that's another kind of goal of Pixelpop, is to help bring like local writers and local press and local content creators into the community and make them feel more like a part of it, because truly you are. I mean, without press, we would have a really hard time letting people know about what we're working on.
Right, exactly. Right, guys?
Thank you, by the way, for that answer. This is more directed at TJ, actually. You guys had a pretty successful Kickstarter. I wanted to know how that whole process was, because Kickstarter is kind of a wild beast.
Oh, yes, it is.
You wrote it pretty well, man. So, like, what do you have to say about that whole process?
Yeah, so it was like kind of nerve-wracking actually. But that was the first like Kickstarter that I was actually directly involved with. Yeah, our goal wasn't super high. It was just like 15K. But we got most of it in our last day, and so that's what really makes me nervous about Kickstarter, because like we were going into that day thinking, okay, maybe we're not going to make it. We have a plan B. We're going to start going towards that. It was sad. We even bought like a cake and everything. We were expecting it to be like a failure cake or something. But no, just right at the end, we started just getting a flood of donations. Someone donated like $500 like right at the end, and just set us over our goal. And like it was insane. We were like just cheering in our office. And so yeah, it's a really unpredictable sort of thing where you get a lot of money your first day, a lot of money your last day. It goes different for every Kickstarter. Some people will have like a steady stream. Some people will go like way over their goal, like halfway through, depending on like how viral your idea is, I guess. But yeah, it was awesome to just like get that goal in the last second. It was super clutch, and yeah, we had some cake that day.
Well, Carol also has some experience with that, and
Yeah.
You want to talk about?
I've run 3 Kickstarters. One for the very first Pixelpop, one for a video game that failed miserably with actually Happy Badger Studio. It was a really beautiful game, but it was an art game that not very many people were super like could wrap their minds around, I guess. And then one for my card game, which succeeded. And I will say, like, it's a toss-up. And having somebody like Jamie Stegmeyer in the city, who you can go to for his blog on stonemeyergames.com, has so many amazing Kickstarter resources on how to set up a great Kickstarter campaign for a game. Like, this is not just board games. This is for any kind of Kickstarter campaign. And like really being able to like reach out and ask local folks for help and feedback on the Kickstarter page before you ever launch. Genius Games is also a huge resource for Kickstarter help, because they've had so many successful Kickstarter projects. It really is just like a matter of figuring out, what it is that's important to you, how to promote it during the Kickstarter, and that it's never an easy process. It's always going to be stressful, and it's always going to be a little bit nerve-wracking. But if you can pull it off, it means that like hundreds of people literally donated money to help your dreams come true. And so that's the magic of it.
But it is definitely a very tricky business. So.
What was the name of that other company?
Stonemeyer Games, if you, his website has a ton. He also made a book. His name is James Stegmeyer. He published a book about crowdfunding. I don't remember the full title, but it's super helpful.
So your hand right back here.
Yeah, I also do writing, but on the other hand, I also do some voice acting. So would voice acting also be in this community and stuff?
Yeah, there's definitely definite uses for voice acting in communities for games. Yeah, for sure.
Woodsy Studios is the one that I can think of that actively puts out calls for voice acting. They have Echoes of the Bay is, I believe, the whole series, yes. It's visual novels, but they also have voice acting in it. But yeah, like that's one studio I can think of. I know there's other larger studios, but.
Yeah, and I know they generally do their casting through voices.com, I think, and other online resources, but they also always announce their casting calls through the co-op Facebook group.
Right. And correct me if I'm wrong too, but like whenever we're talking about game jams a lot, that's a resource that's needed while you're there. So even if you're not necessarily making the game, in the weeds of the dev, go to these game jams because they're going to need you there.
Have you done the demographics on what, tween girls like console, mobile, by themselves, with other people?
I don't know if there's strict demographics, but I know like for the playtesting that we do for Volcano Bean, because we definitely, for Battle Cakes, are getting very much a tween crowd is very into it. A lot of them are mobile. They have tablets. I mean, of course, with like their parents, they've already purchased consoles, but that's something I've noticed more and more is that not everyone in the younger crowd has a console or a fancy gaming computer.
And Nintendo is generally more popular
Yes.
with the younger crowd, and I think studies have been done that girls generally lean more toward cooperative games if they are going to play multiplayer. I think a lot of people are drawn to multiplayer, and I think generally, I mean, I think everybody loves cooperative games, but I think if you're looking at like an actual gender demographic split, girls are definitely more in the cooperative camp than the competitive camp.
Okay.
Generally speaking.
Yeah,
Like caveat, like big asterisks on that. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I want to give everyone a chance up here to tell you where you can find them, because if you have more questions, you can find them directly on social. So, TJ, do you want to start?
Oh yeah, sure. I'm on Twitter at _TJ5, like TEEJY5. And all my art is on my website, terrifyingjellyfish.com. That's where you can find like everything I do, even like unfinished stuff. I just throw it up there. And I'm pretty much on everything else too. Yeah, Instagram, Facebook. Yeah, just look up Terrifying Jellyfish or TJ Hughes.
I'm not as social crazy as these kids. You can find me on Facebook under Bott, and if you come get my business card, you can email me. But that's me.
You can find me through Volcano Bean, which is volcanobean.com or at
Volcano Bean?
Volcano Bean, the two words volcano and bean. We're on Twitter.
Volcano Bean!
Yeah, that's our intro. But you can also find me at marymck.com or Mary McKelly on Twitter. One of the easiest ways to find me.
I'm on Twitter at Carol Mertz. I'm at carolmertz.com, and you can find Pixelpop, or unless you want to. Pixelpop is Pixelpop Fest on Twitter, and pixelpopfestival.com. And we're also Pixelpop Festival on Facebook. Keep an eye on us, sign up for our newsletter, let us know if there's anything you'd like to see at the upcoming festival.
Absolutely, and starting here very soon, we're going to be sharing some videos that were taken at last year's Pixelpop Festival, talking about a lot of the stuff we've been talking about today. So watch for that. It's going to be a YouTube channel series that we're really excited to share, so it gives you an idea of what you'll see there this year in August. And I'm Wendy Buskey. You can find me on Twitter at Wendy Buskey or at Nerd for a Living. That is the podcast that I'm. Thank you guys so much.
Live long and prosper.
You say August.